Hello, and welcome to the Path of Most Persistence. This is a place where we hear and share tenacious stories of overcoming obstacles with our partners who dare to share a bit of their own personal paths. Jamie White is the founder and executive director of Allie's Way, a nonprofit organization created to spread awareness about the dangers of distracted driving through the loss of her precious 2-year-old daughter, Allie Estelle White. Jamie's faith, perseverance, and passion for ending distracted driving fatalities are what motivates her to travel throughout the state of Texas, presenting Allie's tragic story to high school students, government agencies, businesses, and communities in conjunction with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Jamie has also collaborated with TxDOT for their Talk, Text, Crash campaign, as Allie was selected to be the face of Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Jamie works with other nonprofit organizations, law enforcement, lawmakers, and the Safe to Save, a safe driving app that rewards drivers who drive undistracted. Allie's Way is a legacy and a mission in memory of Jamie's daughter, Allie, that is saving lives across the state of Texas under her leadership. Jamie, it is such an honor to have you with us today. Thank you for coming in and having this chat with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this really does mean so much to our foundation and to our family.
Yes, of course. And just for a little history for our audience and most definitely my team and myself, can you talk a little bit? Can we just go ahead and start with your daughter? I feel as though I would like to start off with honoring her before we get into all the other conversations and topics.
Well, Allie Estelle White was the fourth of our children. She was the last. She was kind of like the bookend because our oldest daughter is a girl, obviously, and then we have 2 boys, and then Allie just she was like the icing on the cake. She was the summary of all of our kids, and I could see all of our kids' personalities in Allie. She was like a bright light for our family, unconditional love, laughter. She just made our days amazing, and really she brought out a part of my personality that I didn't even know existed. We go on our about our daily schedules and our daily lives, and then all of a sudden I get pregnant with our 4th child, and we weren't expecting it. And when Allie came into our lives, my personality changed, and so it was just, our lives were so full and perfect.
Well, I'm curious, before we go on, you say that your personality changed. In what way? I'm so curious to know.
She brought out such a vibrance in my personality. I just had so much fun with her, and she just brought out kind of the little kid in me. And we enjoyed playing together. I loved taking her places and being silly with her. Yeah. And I just, it was that vibrance that I didn't have before because our kids were getting older. Yes. And, they weren't little anymore. And so here comes Allie, and she just ignited that little piece of my personality that
brought about some levity. It sounds as
right.
though. Thank you for taking the time to share that. I think for many parents, not just mothers, but I think each of our children, for many, again, every parent's experience is different. But I think because they all have their own personalities, they do bring out or enhance a part of ourselves that maybe has been dormant, or maybe you haven't had access to for whatever reason. And certainly as we age, because our children are aging, as we're having them, obviously, and we ourselves are aging, and if we're professionally minded, we're changing in our careers and our responsibilities. So it is interesting with each of our children. It's a little bit different.
It is. And I've noticed my personality changes with each of my children.
Yes.
Because I have to interact with them in different ways.
That's right. They all have different needs and different expectations of us as well, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
So, to speak specifically about Allie's Way, can you share about the program, the organization?
Absolutely. So when we lost Allie, of course, she was 2 when she was killed by a distracted driver. Our lives were just shattered. It's that feeling that you are walking around, but you're not really living. You don't half the time know where you are. Half the time you don't know what you're saying. It's that intense grief. Like I describe it as if I felt like I took 10 bottles of Benadryl and you're not awake.
Yes.
And but my husband and I, knowing what we went through, we didn't want this to happen to another family. Mm-hmm. We had suffered so immensely, and just we wanted to end it. And so for some parents, dealing with grief is for everybody, it's different.
Yes.
So for some parents, dealing with grief is kind of bottling up, curling up in a ball and giving up.
Yeah.
And for us, and for me specifically, it was about fighting.
Mm.
I wanted to honor Allie. I didn't want to curl up and just shrivel away in my grief. I had too much to live for. And there were those moments where I felt like I was sinking. Yes. You feel like you're in this big ocean of grief, and you're sinking, and you're desperately trying to stay afloat. Mm. And then your faith brings you out of it. Yes. And it's almost like that hand that pulls you out of the ocean and rescues you and gives you that life raft. And so once we kind of started coming out of that fog, if you will, we decided to do something about it. And that was Allie's Way. And we thought, we can rescue other people, and we can save other families from having to go through the same thing that we've been through.
Mm. That's beautiful and painful, all just wrapped up. And so if you don't mind, I want to walk through a little bit of what you said. So when you talk about fighting, that perseverance, that persistence, where did that come from? I know you mentioned your faith. Did it all come from your faith, or was that something that has just been an aspect of your personality, yours, your husband's, your children's personalities, that just kind of came to you, or did you really have to work at it?
That's a really good question. I know I've always been a fighter. Mm-hmm. To a certain degree, and I say that in a positive way. Yes. And our kids have different personalities. So, like my youngest, besides Allie, Brady and Allie actually both have that fight in them and have that perseverance in them. Yes. And so does Tyler, our middle child, and then Madison, our oldest, is more, she's persistent, but she's very laid back. Mm-hmm. So she's not as fighting, as much of a fighter personality as maybe we are. And everybody's just different, and it all works together cohesively. For me, I've been through a lot in my life, and that led me to this moment. And I feel like the faith is definitely what brought us out of our out of the worst of the situation. Mm-hmm. Because the night that it happened, actually, we had a nun that was brought to our house, and she revealed things about Allie from a religious perspective that we had not recognized. And so when we realized that God has a plan and a purpose, and he had a plan and a purpose for her life, and he has a plan and a purpose for every single one of our lives. We decided, okay, this is the time to do something with this and try to fulfill that purpose. And so the fight really it is internal, and it does exist, but then with that, you can't necessarily fight. I in my own opinion and my own experience, I could not have gone through this battle without my faith.
Yes.
Because that strengthens us and gives us the guidance and the tools to be able to go about and fulfill what we need to fulfill.
So for people listening, I want to just spend a little bit more time on your faith because, again, this is a path of most persistence. And we want to talk to individuals such as yourselves that are so generous in sharing their experiences and stories. But for some of our listeners, faith comes quite easily to them. Some, they don't feel it, they don't touch it, they don't recognize it. And I know faith can take many different shapes, sizes, appearances. Some are very connected to religion, some are not. But for you and your family, again, going back to that persistence, that perseverance, and going through the tragedy that you all experienced, was your faith always just constant? Was it always just so strong? And it was something, because it seemed as though most people that I know, even the most faithful, have the hills and valleys of life with their own experience with that. Again, whatever shape their faith takes. I'm just wondering for you, was it constant? And if it ever dipped, how did you bring it back up? And especially, and I'm sorry, my questions have questions within questions, but with trying to sustain your faith or where it is, it maintains itself, how did you receive that message from the nun that visited you? Because was it reassuring? Was it frightening? Was it off-putting?
So I'm going to start from the beginning.
Please.
And then I'll get to the last question.
Yes.
So growing up, I grew up with a military dad. Mm-hmm. So there were very high expectations set. And I'm grateful for that because it trained me to be tough. It trained me to get through challenges and persevere and have that fighting drive. However, it was very challenging because I had these high expectations set for me that I didn't always accomplish. Through all of my challenges, I will say that I've had people come into my life here and there that kind of that had a stronger faith than I did. Mm-hmm. I didn't grow up in the church necessarily. Mm-hmm. I went to church, but not necessarily consistently. I didn't study the Bible. I had never read the Bible ever, but I knew God existed, and I knew that from my mom. My dad would give me bits and pieces here and there. People that I knew would give me a little bit of information here and there. So I started developing a relationship with God when I was in high school because I needed that something to pull me through those really hard challenges in high school because you know how hard it is. Mm-hmm. If your expectation level is set so high,
yes,
and it's sometimes not attainable just by human standards, yes, you have to have something to lean on or someone. And so that's where I went because I thought, I have my mom and my dad, but I needed something more. So I actually started speaking to God in private when I was in high school, not knowing anything about him. Later in life, I lost my way because, we go through college, we grow up, we go in our 20s, we start partying and doing all of these things. And, I got into a relationship with my now husband. We both were kind of not really in our faith, weren't going to church, weren't praying. And I just felt like we were not making the best decisions. We weren't making bad decisions, but we just weren't on the right path. And we both had good jobs. We were both successful in our careers. But it just wasn't, we were missing that. then we get pregnant with our daughter. And we had just broken up. And I was terrified. I was 28, so I had an apartment, I had a job. Yes. I knew that I could do it, and I knew that I would do it. Mm-hmm. But how was I going to tell my ex-boyfriend that we had a baby coming? I knew he wouldn't, I thought that he wouldn't take it well. Mm-hmm. So I kept it a secret for the first trimester, and I just did my best to make sure my baby was healthy, that I was making the right decisions for her, and that I was preparing. And then once I got out of the first trimester, I had that terrifying phone call to my ex-boyfriend. So we have a baby coming, and how are we going to do this? Are you willing to be partner with me in this? And amazingly, we started becoming friends again, and started developing our relationship again. We started working together as a partnership, and not everybody has this happen. Mm-hmm. But one thing led to another, and through this process of getting ready for our daughter to come, we rebuilt our relationship, and then we started our family. Got married, and then we had more kids and more kids. So I believe that, things are put in our path, or babies are put in our path. And for us, having Madison made us grow up. Mm. It put us back on the path, because I can tell you a moment when I had just found out I was pregnant. I was terrified. Mm. I was driving around Austin because I didn't know what else to do, and the song, and as cheesy as it sounds, the song "Jesus Take the Wheel" came on the radio. Goodness, yes. And that's when it was so popular. Yes. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is perfect. Mm. I couldn't have asked for a better message. At that point, I said, I didn't know what to do. That was it. And when that song came on the radio, I realized, okay, God, just take this. I can't do this on my own. Humanly, it's not possible. So I'm going to trust you, and I'm just going to let you roll with it. And at that time, I wasn't going to church. I wasn't praying. I wasn't in my faith. I was a believer, but I wasn't acting on it. And that sparked the beginning of basically a faith journey that led me to where I'm at now.
That is completely beautiful, your story. And again, thank you for sharing that. That's so selfless of you to do that. I appreciate how you spoke about your faith journey and all your experiences early on. It reminds me a lot of my studies. I did quite a lot of studying on leadership, and a part of my studies, I did lots of interviews with women from many different countries, and what their experiences were, and how they persisted, and how they maintained. And unanimously, it didn't matter faith background, educational background, cultural background. Everyone had the same threads that were common. It was believing in something more than themselves, something higher. For many, it was a religious faith. Some, it was just faith in themselves, faith in nature, whatever it was. But it was beautiful in that way, because they knew they were part of something more grand. And each of them also talked about an extremely difficult time in their life, that each of them took that tragedy or difficulty, whatever form it was, to make it good, to make something better, bigger. And those are just, two of those common strands, that people that feel quite ordinary do extraordinary things if they just choose to reframe or see things outside and bigger than themselves, that they're part of it. So you, again, provided a beautiful example how people that maybe sometimes feel quite ordinary can do amazing things. And I want to pivot a little bit onto specifically what Allie's Way, the nonprofit organization, does the work you do, because I know you do tremendous work and so much good for the community and the state. But before we go there, I love that you received that message from a song. That one song, Jesus Take the Wheel. I think, but do you think messages are all around us if we just choose to hear them or see them?
Absolutely. So I will say I have received an immense number of messages through my life. It has been really, really interesting, really almost unbelievable at times. But I do believe that, sincerely. We have to pay attention. Mm. And, Allie's Way is just it saves people. It promotes selflessness, in a sense. And that's what we've got to do. We have to be more selfless, less self-focused. Yes. And when we get outside of our bubble and we start noticing things around us, people around us, we start receiving messages that we otherwise would never have received.
That's right. And when you say Allie's Way saves people, let's talk about that. So what does the organization do? What are some of the practicalities of it? And where can people, if they're not aware of the organization, how can they become more aware? And can they participate in some way?
Absolutely. So I am the Lone Ranger in our organization. Yes. Because I'm the founder, executive director, treasurer, I'm everything. So we welcome volunteers above and beyond anything imaginable, because it's hard to do everything by yourself. Yes. So it really does take a village. And so Allie's Way, it was really, we wanted to turn tragedy into promise. So what we started out doing is once we've got the foundation built as a 501c3 officially, we felt like that was necessary, because in order to get Allie's story out there, we needed to become reputable. We needed that 501c3 to make sure that we started building a reputation, a trusting reputation. So once we did that, I was invited on a AAA virtual summit, and I spoke on that virtual summit. That's where I met Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and then we started talking, and then we built a partnership, because I wanted to start getting out there, sharing Allie's story with others, so they would know the dangers about distracted driving, so they would be more aware of what they were doing when they're driving their car. Yes. Because a lot of people become just complacent with technology, with driving in general. Yes. They think they can multitask and they're fine. We wanted to build a message that you can't. As much as we want to be superhumans, we just are not capable of multitasking successfully while we're driving. Yes. We know that. And the statistics have proven that. In fact, distracted driving has become such an epidemic that now it's worse than drunk driving. So, with that partnership with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, I was then able to go along with them and share Allie's story in high schools, and that was the start of it. And I also shared, one of my first actual presentations was in Gatesville to troops that were coming back from overseas, because they hadn't built out awareness about the roads back home yet. They were so used to the way it was overseas. And, oh my goodness, yes. And so building that awareness about Allie's story and sharing, okay, you think you're okay multitasking, but please be aware that we're just not. We have to be careful. Not only do we have to be careful about our driving, but we have to be careful to watch out for others who are distracted as well. So from there, it just spiraled. We built a relationship with State Farm, who then funded our PSA, our public service announcement, which we'll have to talk more about, because that is amazing. We partnered with Safe to Save, so we're doing safe driving competitions in high schools across the state. We're currently working on Austin right now in the greater Austin area. We've been involved in TASA events for education and building that awareness in schools. So it's just kind of snowballed and gotten bigger and bigger. And I really do see the promise of Allie's Way bringing this message eventually nationwide.
Yes. Well, that's beautiful. And that is the beauty of partnerships and collaboration. And I hope this platform serves as another way for you to extend your messaging for sure and gathering more partners and collaborators. But, I think about you and you being that person, that main individual that has wearing all the hats. That has to be exhausting, not only in wearing all the hats, but sharing and resharing your family story, Allie's story. Again, how do you persist through that? How do you, as with your mother's heart and those experiences, but also find a way to do the job that's at hand? That professional level of delivery, of maintaining yourself without slipping into that has to be that mother's emotional heart.
Yeah. Well, I do slip into the emotional. I was finding that every time I made a presentation and spoke about it, the day leading up to the presentation, I would get extremely nervous. I would get extremely emotional. And it's almost like building up to that climax,
yes,
like in a story. And then when I make the presentation, that's the big climax. And then after the presentation is over, then I can breathe and I can settle down. And it's been that way from the very beginning. But what has gotten me through it is I know there's a big picture.
Yes.
It's just like what you said. We've got a purpose, and I have to literally talk myself through it every time. You're here for a mission.
Yes.
There's something big that you're accomplishing. Just get through it. Take it step by step, moment by moment, and we'll get through this. And once it's all done, we can breathe and we can take a rest. And that's kind of how it's been. Speaking with my therapist and working with her,
yes,
I have realized that when these challenges are presented, and I want to send her message out there,
yes,
I want to share her story as much as possible, as painful as it is, because it is overwhelmingly painful to keep repeating.
yes,
And especially through the month of April, when she was selected as the face of distracted driving for TxDOT, I was traveling and making speeches once or twice a week through the month of April. But I knew the mission. I knew how important it was. And so I would fall into those emotional ruts, and then I'd talk my way back out. We can't do this. We have to pick ourselves up. We have to dust ourselves off, and we have to keep progressing, because this is important. This is the most important thing that I think I will ever accomplish in my life. And it's for all of those people. It's for the people that are still living.
yes,
That it's to save them. But it's also for those victims that don't have a voice anymore. It's for the grieving families that don't have the strength to get out there and share the message and try to make this impact and change our thinking and change our driving behaviors. And so it's so very important for everybody that I thought, this is a huge responsibility. I have to be successful with this. So what I do is I go, I get it done, and then when I'm done, I'm gentle, very gentle on myself, and I take a break until I can muster up the energy to go again, and then I do the next step.
Jamie, you could give a master class on living life. Just everything that you says goes along with any type of research, any type of plan to sustain oneself, and what your message, the way I'm receiving it, the way I hear it, it's one that everyone can learn from. Just the fact of that fighter mentality that you have, which I very much appreciate, it's choosing to, this is what you're going to do. There's going to be a build-up, there's going to be a workup, but it's going to be worth it if you just do it. And even for you, a person with a fighter type personality, it takes you some self-talk to get through it, to build yourself up. And I think that's so important for our audience, especially perhaps some of our younger audience, but also no matter the age of our audience, those that have a difficult time finding strength within. Even the strongest among us need that reassurance of ourselves, the talking up, the building up, the realizing that it's for the good to do it. For you, the greater good, whatever it is. But once it's done, the mission was accomplished. And then you can relax and celebrate.
Yes. And I can't tell you the number of times that I have hit rock bottom. And I've figured out ways through therapy,
yes,
and through just self exploration, sort of,
yes,
in a sense. Figuring out ways to get through that, because there were so many times where I just bawled my eyes out. I can't tell you how much I've cried, and I still do it. It's just, I'm never going to not grieve. It is the rest of my life. But it's how we deal with it. It's how we approach it that means the most. And I just think, we can't stop. We can't, let that overcome us. We have to build through it. We have to work through it and then get back out. And so a lot of times when I would hit rock bottom like that, where I just felt hopeless in a sense,
yes,
I would take a step back, think through it. Remember the overall objective.
yes,
Remember how much I absolutely adore my baby, because I'm doing this for her too. I mean, it's a mother's fight for her daughter,
yes,
and for her legacy and for this mission. And so I would sit in my closet with my squishy toys. I would journal. I would go outside and take walks. I would go for runs. I would take my dog walking. I would just enjoy the outdoors. I never laid in my bed. I never let myself lay in my bed and curl up. I would not let myself do that, even if I needed a moment of silence to just process everything. I would even go for drives. And I have on very many occasions asked, like I said, going back to the faith thing, I've asked God multiple times, why did you take her? And finally got a response. One day I got a response. I was driving and I heard it. It was in my head, but I heard it. And the voice said, I didn't take her, I gave you a gift. And so with that, at first I thought, exactly what does that mean? Because I don't understand that. How could this be a gift?
It probably didn't feel like a gift.
No, not at all. But I truly do believe that she was our gift. She is our gift. And like as I said before, her life had a mission. She was only meant to stay for a couple of years. And I enjoyed every single solitary second of those 2 years, almost 3. And I still have her. She's around. I can't see her, but I know she's here as a believer. We do believe that. And so I have to keep going.
Beautiful. So I, again, thank you for sharing the painful fact that you have hit, as you mentioned, rock bottom. And again, you're so generous to acknowledge that and speak to that in this conversation because, again, I think sometimes people will see, maybe perhaps they'll see you and think, well, look at her doing her work. She's just supernatural. She's so strong. She has this faith. But it is important when we can and when we're able to articulate our vulnerability and our weakness because, again, we're human. And to not acknowledge that, I think, would almost be a disservice to all those that are following or attempting to follow your example, to know that, again, the strongest among us have those moments where they've bottomed out, but somehow, some way, they've regrouped and began to climb again. So thank you for sharing that with us. That's tremendously generous.
It truly is how you cope with it. Mm-hmm. You're so right. And my husband actually bought me this Wonder Woman ring one Christmas. So
you'll have to show it to camera.
So when I go speak, I use my Wonder Woman ring as a reminder that we are all Wonder Woman. If we just persist, we don't let those brick walls affect us. Because we can break through them. We just have to approach things the right way. We have to keep going, keep that persistence, keep that mindset of you can do this. Yes. Pick yourself up and you dust yourself off and you keep moving. And that's the Wonder Woman inside of all of us. And I think we all have it. Yes. We just have to tap into it.
You just have to acknowledge it. And I love you using the analogy of the brick wall because sometimes it is a bust, but sometimes it's chipping away with a fingernail file just at the grout to loosen a brick perhaps, but eventually it'll give. Something will give if we're, again, persistent.
Yes.
Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned the PSA. Would you like to talk about the PSA, the public service announcement, that I think you wanted to go back to?
Yes, I would love to. So it's amazing how things happen. Through this journey with Allie's Way. It has been a roller coaster. We have had amazing successes, and we've had, I wouldn't say failures, but we've had slowdowns where not much happened. And then we'll have a success. So it is really a roller coaster. With that, we had an amazing high last week where we found out that, and our public service announcement has been submitted to the Austin Film Festival.
Congratulations.
Yes, into their short documentary category.
Oh, my goodness.
And we were thrilled beyond belief. So the reason for the PSA initially was because, as you had said earlier, I was repeating the story so many times, and it was absolutely gut-wrenching for me to do that. But I did it because it was necessary. So I thought, okay, I can spread the word farther and with less emotional trauma if I have a video to show what happened and to provide this visual. And that's the other piece of it. When I was speaking about it, I couldn't really have a visual of what happened. It's so much easier to just show a video so they can actually see how things happened in the parking lot that day with Allie and Chris. And so what I did was I reached out to AgriLife Extension, and I said, look, this is what I'd like to do. Would you be supportive of this? And they said, absolutely. And so they reached out to State Farm. State Farm said, yes, we are on board. So State Farm funded this PSA with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and it was beautiful. It was filmed by Mosaic Media in Austin. The production crew of Mosaic Media really, this was a personal thing for them because one of the crew has a 2-year-old. And they just took it at heart, and they did such an amazing job on it. We had reached out to different people that were kind of similar to the people in Allie's story. So, for example, I have a friend who has a little girl that looks very similar to Allie. So she represented Allie. So the video is a semi-reenactment, and I say semi because not all of the, like, it wasn't the same car, and things like that. So we wanted to protect the privacy of the people involved.
Absolutely.
But we wanted to show what happened to provide that awareness. That was probably the second hardest day of my life, watching the semi-reenactment, where it happened, how it happened. And it was almost like me being there when it happened, because I came afterwards. So Allie was killed in front of my husband, right beside my husband. And I arrived shortly afterwards. My husband called me and told me what happened, and I arrived shortly afterwards. And again, I just kneeled down and prayed. That's all I could do, because I knew I couldn't save her, and I couldn't speak to her. I felt like she probably knew I was there, but her eyes weren't open. So anyway, having to relive all that was really hard. But I knew, again, it was a mission, and there was a purpose, and this was necessary. So I got through the day, and we went home, and the video was produced. And afterwards, it was just spectacular. So now Mosaic Media has submitted to Austin Film Festival. TxDOT has officially endorsed it, because they are completely supportive of the message. And it's just, now we're going to release it to the public on September 29th, officially. It will be the 3rd anniversary of Allie's passing, so it will honor her. We're looking to do the event in Austin or Round Rock, and Commissioner Ryan will be there.
That's very, very special. My goodness. Through all of that pain, something beautiful and helpful is surely coming of this, because of the choice, the painful choices you make every day, you and all those that support you and work toward this effort. So with all my love, appreciation, and admiration, congratulations on your work of pain, turning it into something that definitely will help people.
We are so excited, and I just this is something that will be released across the state. My goal is to get it into the hands of every school administrator across the state, because it needs to be seen by high school drivers, by new drivers, by their parents.
Yes.
How many parents go through school zones and they still use their phone?
Yes.
Even though they know it's illegal.
Yes.
Because they have too much going on, and they're not focused on just picking up their child. They think I've got to make this phone call. I've got to do this.
It's just going to be a second. It's just going to take 1 second. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mindset.
So I'm hoping that we can get it in all of the parents' hands, in the hands of the students, the administrators, and we'll start there. And it'll go out to all of the TxDOT offices, who will then be able to release it in their cities. So I really feel like this is after September 29th, this video is going to be everywhere.
Well, we certainly want to be a partner in helping you proliferate, spread the message, spread the video. So anything we can do to support this effort, we're happy to do it. And also, as you've shared so many of the resources that you yourself used, if there are any resources that you'd like to share with our audience, because once we release this video, we'll attach, of course, your bio, your CV, your picture, and any other accompanying information that you'd like. But any helpful resources to our audience would be greatly appreciated, without a doubt.
That would be wonderful. So we are, as I mentioned earlier, I'm also working with Safe to Save. We are starting in the greater Austin area, starting in about October timeframe. We will be launching safe driving competitions in high schools.
Oh, my goodness.
The Safe to Save app is an app that gives you rewards for not touching the phone while you drive. So the partnership with them has been phenomenal, because Allie's way is the why. Why we don't want to do this. We don't want to end another life or see another child killed. And so Safe to Save really is the tool on how we hold ourselves accountable. So now we've got the why and we've got the how. And it's a perfect combination. It's a perfect partnership along with Texas A&M, building that awareness and getting out into the communities. And so we're going to be launching those safe driving competitions. The students compete to have the highest score, driving score, and then the winner gets, a prize. It could be money or a gift card or whatever, and then some money also goes back to the school as well. So that's a phenomenal effort. We've already had a lot of schools commit to those safe driving competitions, and we're building more. So we're hoping that school administrators, superintendents, principals will step up and support these competitions. And they're really not staff intensive. Safe to Save does a lot of work for them, so they don't have to put a lot of hours into it. Right. Besides that, the other piece of things is that Senator Zaffarini is championing a bill called Allie's Way Act. And so they're still working out the details of Allie's Way Act. But as a stakeholder in that, I'm proud to be able to help educate them. I'm working with law enforcement to gather information from a law enforcement perspective. What is enforceable? What's not? What would help create consequences for those people that do end a life because of distracted driving, or for those people that do severely injure someone else because of distracted driving. There has to be some consequence for this, and currently there is nothing. So the person that killed Allie did not get anything, no consequences at all. And so a lot of people don't know that because we don't have laws that will protect our other drivers, our pedestrians. So we really need those laws in place, to help with that.
Not only protection, but deterrent, to deter even the notion to even engage in that way.
Yes. And while I don't lobby, I like to educate, everybody on what we need. Basically, I feel like the unifier, the person that brings in the law enforcement perspective and speaks to our legislators and speaks to our community, our citizens, our parents, other drivers. So I collect all of this information, and the information that I get from Texas Transportation Institute, TxDOT, and AgriLife Extension, I compile all of that and provide it to our legislation so that we can help make our roads a lot safer.
Well, you definitely bring a perspective, albeit painful, one that is undeniable, and one that has been lived. So, of course, all those stakeholders would surely want to hear your perspective and value it, no doubt. Yes. But as we close out, and again, I'd love to have you back. I would love to continue our conversations. But before we do, is there anything else that you had hoped we covered that we haven't covered, or you'd like to spend a little more time on?
I hope that anybody who's interested in making an impact, a positive impact on our roads, anybody that feels like this is very close to their heart, please reach out to me. Our website is allieswaysaves.org, and you can contact me there. We're always open for volunteers, new ideas, and I love working with people. So I would love to have anybody on my team. As I said, it does take a village.
Yes.
So the way that we've been able to make so much progression is by working together. Yes. Everybody, TxDOT, A&M, State Farm. I hope I didn't leave anybody out.
Well, public, private, it takes all the entities.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I would love that. And for those people that are going through challenges in life, I hope, you remember this story, and I hope that this has inspired you to just keep pushing through, keep persevering. Know that we can make a difference. You can make a difference. Even the smallest person can make a humongous difference, as you mentioned earlier. And I hope this has been very inspiring for those people that need that message.
Thank you. Thank you once again for coming in today and sharing your lovely and albeit painful message and experience. You've turned it into a beautiful work, and thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
And to our audience, thank you so much for listening in. I hope you've listened to the entire conversation and all of our other conversations that we've had on all of our platforms. And like Jamie, I hope that we choose to fight every day, fight for the good, the possible, and all the things that make life better. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.